Okay, so lots is happening in this week's Parsha. Lots connected, of course, to what we're going through. Part of what's happening in this week's Parsha is God appears to Abraham and tells him to have a Brit Milah. This is also the week that Yitzchak is born. He's named Yitzchak. Sarah's first told that he's going to be born. She laughs, Yitzchak, and the name Yitzchak is from this laughter that Sarah laughed, unbelievably thinking that how can I at such an old age have a child? So this laughter is the name of the Jewish people. We also see that Avram asks God not to destroy Sodom in this week's portion. We also see later on that Sarah tells Abraham to send away Yishmael because Yishmael was harming Yitzchak. Shocking. And Abraham actually is very reluctant. He doesn't want to. This is the big fight that happens in this week's Torah portion until God himself says, listen to Sarah. Whatever Sarah tells you, listen to her. She knows, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then finally, towards the end of the week's Parsha, we have the akeidat, Yitzchak, where Avraham is commanded to sacrifice Yitzchak. He takes Yitzchak, he walks with him, and the commentaries explain Yitzchak was already an older man. At this time, he was 37 years old. He walks together with his father, knowing that this is happening to him. And this was Avraham's 10th and final test that God actually commanded him to kill his only son. And he's ready to do it. He goes up to Har HaMoriah, which is the Temple Mount. That's the place where God's vision was seen. Moriah, meaning seeing God. And he's ready to do it until God says, don't do it. I didn't mean that you should actually do it. I was just trying to test you to see if this is something that you were willing to do. So let's start backwards a little bit, okay? The whole idea of the akeidat Yitzchak. I saw this week, someone posted, a mother posted on one of these chats, not on a chat, one of these Facebook groups, how she is really feeling so overwhelmed, of course, with everything that's going on, and how she's really sad to give this burden of being a Jew to her child. Wow. And she feels sad that she's a Jew because everywhere that you go, it's just so horrific. And this is, of course, what some people do feel now, because of what's going on. It's so much, we wonder, God, why? Why is this happening? Well, God is the master of the world. Why are you allowing this to happen? We see things that are happening all around us that don't seem to make sense. Of course, as we discussed, there's also so much positive going on and so many mitzvot that are happening and unity and people coming together and really the essence of the Jew coming together. But I think really that it's in this week's Torah portion that we get the strength to battle through what we're going through and to emerge successful. How do we see this? We see this with Abraham with the akeidat Yitzchak. What was the akeidat Yitzchak? It says this was his 10th and final test. Now, what does this mean, his 10th and final test? When he was just a young boy, it says he was thrown into the fiery furnace of Nimrod because he refused to bow down to the idols. And he was thrown into the fire, and God made a miracle for him. And this was before God even revealed himself to Abraham. But he just, in his mind, it didn't make sense that everyone's bowing down to these idols. It was nonsensical. He says, there must be more. There's a master of this universe. There's a creator to this universe. It's impossible that you have a beautiful house and there's no owner. You have this beautiful mansion and no one built it. What does it mean? It just happened like that? It doesn't make sense. So he stood up against all that when he was very young. And the whole society was completely against him. And he stood strong. That's what we say that Avraham means. Aver, from Ivri. The word Ivri, the word Jew, means aver, that we stand against everybody. That we come from the word Ivri, which is Hebrew, Ivrit, Ivri, okay. The word ivri comes from the fact that he's from the other side, from Aver Hayarden, from the other side of the river. On a deeper meaning, what does ivri mean? That the Jew stands opposite, away from everybody. I mean, we see that now. Unfortunately, we're away from everybody. But it means that we stand strong despite what everyone is saying. That the whole world says, go jump right. And we say, no, that's not what we're supposed to be doing. The whole world says, sacrifice to these idols. The whole world says, death to the Jews. And we say, this is not right. This isn't what is true. We stand strong to who we are. We don't bend. We don't give in. We don't just dissolve under the pressure. We are ivri, and we've always been ivri. That person that stands for the convictions, the person that, and the world knows this. Just hearing Jordan Peterson today, he was talking about how the Jews are so easy to foment against, to hate. Why? Because we're the biggest minority. I mean, the smallest minority. We're a tiny minority. And it's easy to hate a minority, a tiny minority that's successful. We're a tiny minority that's successful. And I thought that's true, but there's more to it. What does it mean, a tiny minority that's successful? What does it mean to be successful? Being successful is not only in riches, in being prosperous. That's not what being successful is, because they hated us even when we weren't successful in terms of richness or prosperous. Being successful means moral people, upstanding people, godly people, people that show the world this is what morality is, as Hitler called us, the moral conscience of the world. Hitler's words, not mine. The Jews are the moral conscience of the world. So standing up to being that successful minority isn't just being successful, it's the minority that knows who they are. They're the ivri. They're standing opposite of everybody. And they stand strong because they know this is the right thing. This is what God wants. And being that kind of nation is, of course, what people hate, because you're showing them what is real, what is true. You are the moral conscience of the world. And you're kind of pricking everybody by showing this is what is real. So, of course, people hate that. And of course, evil hates that, because evil that sees good can't tolerate it. It's something that just sticks you and makes you want, oh, this is horrible. So that is what Avraham always was. And that's why he was thrown into the Kivshan Ha'esh, the iron furnace, the fiery furnace of Nimrod, when he was just little. And he withstood that. God made a miracle for him and he emerged. He cut all his father's idols. You know, when his father left him to take care of his store of idols, Avram wasn't going to take care of it and try to sell it to people. His father left, so when his father came back, he sees all the idols are chopped down. And he says, what's going on here? He says, what do you mean what's going on? The big idol, he fought with everybody else, all the little guys. He wanted all the food, so he fought with them. His father's like, what are you talking about? There's no such thing. Idols can't talk. Idols can't walk. Idols can't move. He says, so why are you serving them? This was little Avram standing up against the world. So this was always all the tests that Avram went through. And we know there was 10 different tests that Avram went through, and that it says they were progressively more difficult. One of the first ones was that he was thrown into this fiery furnace because he didn't bow down to the idols. So how is this test, the akeidat yitzchak, so much more than that first one? And this was actually when God spoke to him. God commanded it to him.
It's son.
Because it's his son. That's true. It's his son. That's very hard to do something that is your son. But it's even more than that. You know, when Avraham, if we look at his whole life mission, what was his life all about? His life was all about teaching godliness to the world. Teaching everybody monotheism, morality. This was what he gave his life for. There are times when you have something that is your mission in life that you're willing to give everything for it. You're willing to sacrifice everything for your life mission. You're willing to leave your kids during the day and with the babysitter because this is so important. So in a way, you're sacrificing your kids for your life mission. You're willing to give your money for it because this is so important. So you give all your money to it. Your resources, your time. This is your life's mission. And that's very noble. But this is a thing that you see is so important. It's overtaken your life. This is your life. You've not given your life for this mission. This has become your life. This has given your life meaning and importance. So there are times when we are ready to sacrifice everything for our life's mission. And though that's noble, in a way, it's really what we see as important in life. It makes sense to us. With Abraham, on the other hand, water, yeah. Thank you. No, it's fine. Thank you. Thank you so much. So you still have that cold a little. With Abraham now, though, he's teaching a mission to the world. He's teaching morality to the world, monotheism to the world. And he's always wondering, all these years, for 90 years, he's wondering, who's going to continue on this mission? Like, he has students, but no one who has that ability to continue it on like him, to lead them, to lead this ministry, to lead this group of people. And finally, God tells him, I'm going to give you a son, Yitzchak. And it's through Yitzchak that Yitzchak will be the son that continues on, that teaches your children, that teaches more people. He's going to be the one to continue on this whole mission that you've started. Miraculous son is going to be born. And this miraculous son is born. And he sees that this miraculous son is indeed a very pious boy, a learned boy, an exceptional boy. And everything's going great. And then God comes to him and says, take the son that I miraculously gave you, that I told you was going to continue on in your mission, and slaughter him. Slaughter him? Slaughter him. So the whole life that Abraham led in teaching people, and let's remember what was going on at the time, what was monotheism that he was teaching them? Not to slaughter their children to the idols. This was something that was done all the time. His whole life's work was teaching morality, teaching monotheism, teaching about a kind God, a moral God, a real God. And then this God tells him to take that very son who's going to continue on this mission, kill him, slaughter him, the exact opposite of what he's been teaching his whole life's work. So basically, he's taking his life's work, he's taking his mission, and he's throwing it out the window. And this is like the real stuff. This is like real nobility. This is real good things that he's trying to do. And he listens. He listens, he takes Yitzchak, and he's ready to slaughter him. And that's why God says this is the final test. Why is this the final test? Because until now, everything that you were doing, were you doing it just because it made sense to you? It was rational? It had meaning to you? Or were you doing it because you wanted a connection with me? Were you doing it because you realized that God is the master of the world and his understanding is not your understanding? So you're not going to understand his grand plan. It won't make sense in your mind. Your mind is small. God's mind is big. So you're not going to understand. Is your relationship with God based on your understanding, what you can understand, what makes sense to you? Or is this relationship based on this unconditional acceptance that this is the creator of the world and what God does? I don't like it. I might not like it at all. I don't have to like it, but I accept it because this is the God's plan, because this is truth, because this is ultimate reality, because this is the only reality. And because though I don't understand it now, I know, not even I believe, but I know with such certainty that it's going to be good for me and it's going to be good for the world. So when Avram takes that knife to slaughter his son's neck and slaughter him, he's saying, my God, my trust in you is unconditional. I don't understand it. You know, I'm wrecking my whole life's work. Over 100 years of what I toiled, forget it. My only son, besides for the fact that he's his only son, but sometimes you could take your only son and okay, he's being sacrificed for a good cause, very hard, but on the other hand, he was willing, you know, it says Yitzchak stuck out his neck and said, Father, do it. So you feel at least it's for a purpose. Here it was completely in vain. Like, I don't understand any of this. It doesn't make any sense.